Hey there, Anne-Marie here. Today I have a scrapbook layout process video, which also includes a sketch, so keep watching for all the info on that. I'm also going to use a hand-stitched border to add contrast and definition to a couple places in my layout, and I'm going to make it a rainbow gradient look using a specific type of stitch. So there's lots packed into this video, so let's jump in. This is my first layout completed in my new scrapbook room. I haven't had a scrapbook room for about 13 years, so the whole setup has been so fun, and I know that I need to use the space and I'll tweak it and I'll make a lot of changes slowly over time. So I do want to give myself a little time in my room before I do a full room tour, but it is coming. So everything's unpacked and technically put away, but very little is actually like organized in its place. So I want to tackle all that hidden stuff too. So for now, you can check out my new scrapbook room playlist for all the shorts of the entire setup. It was really fun. All right, jumping in, I knew I wanted my first layout here to be colorful and punchy, so I found a picture of these handmade stuffies my mother-in-law had made for my kids when they were little. Actually, the yellow one was my husband's when he was a kid. She made them all kinds of fun stuff, like a 3D monster blanket and hooded towel sets and aprons and like a dozen stuffies of all kinds and colors. So when my daughter had her first birthday party with a rainbow theme, I grabbed a rainbow selection of these handmade stuffies for decor in the living room. I spent a good 45 minutes sorting through my various multicolored paper, my spring themed pattern paper, and my birthday themed pattern paper looking for rainbows. So I settled on this rainbow 6x6 paper. This is by Paper Rose, and it's a 6x6 paper collection called Rainbow Twirl 2.0. And the watercolor and stripes are from that pad, but then the polka dots are cut from a 12x12 sheet that includes 4 different 6x6 blocks of different rainbow patterns. And it's from the Cake or Rainbow Sprinkles collection by Photoplay from a few years ago. All right, so I did also mat my focal photo with a thin white border to help it stand out against all of that color in the background pieces. And if you're interested in the sketch that I made to accompany this layout, there's a link in the description box below. It includes a previous sketch that I've made as well, and that file is going to keep growing as I add more sketches as I do more layouts. So be sure to bookmark it to see what I add. So I lay out my papers, essentially creating a large mat using the 3 6x6 pieces. And the first thing I noticed was that the polka dot paper, it was basically a white background against a white background. So I wanted white for the layout as a whole to really make the colors pop. But then we had this white based pattern paper, and for me that's always weird. Like the whites are never quite exactly the same shade of white. Or it just kind of, it looks like the pattern has just kind of, I don't know, I just stopped abruptly for no good reason. So I don't really like to lay white-based pattern papers against white. So I decided that I was going to add some hand stitching at this point in a darker thread to add some definition and contrast to the border of the white-based pattern paper. I couldn't commit to a color though. So I decided, this is a rainbow themed layout. We're going to go whole hog and we're going to make the border full on rainbow of stitching. So if you know me, you know I really like the look of gradients too. And I'm actually even thinking of painting my scrapbook room with a gradient if I can figure it out. Anyway, so I decided to do my stitches in such a way that the colors really look like they're blending together, one color appearing inside another and melting into the next. So I used a split stitch for this. Essentially, I'm going to make a stitch with my red and then come up halfway through that stitch and in between the individual threads of floss so that the orange is splitting the red stitch. And then I'll do that again with the yellow into the orange and the green into the yellow, etc. My only problem was when I came to purple, I should have gone back in through the red to help those colors blend together, but I didn't. I didn't figure that out when I was doing it. So I do have a bit of an abrupt start and stop on my reds and purples here. If you're interested in seeing a really clear explanation or like a good visual of the split stitch, then check out the link in the description box below. Um, it shows a lot of different stitches, but I tried to link it to the specific spot where it talks about the split stitch. Also, if you're interested in me doing a better tutorial, like a more focused tutorial where we only talk about this, making that split stitch border and doing it in the rainbow order, if you're interested in that as a tutorial, please drop a comment so that I know people want it, and then I'll definitely do that. Because this is a little tricky to explain, and obviously I'm doing it on camera, but I wouldn't mind breaking it down even more if people are interested. Okay, so as you'll see later, I add the split stitch border all over the larger mat block. First, I punched holes using my paper piercer and my Tim Holtz ruler. It comes with these pre-drilled holes at precise intervals, so your stitches are always even. But you can do the same thing just by using your paper piercer or like a large needle with any ruler and just go slow. I did put a couple mouse pads underneath my cardstock when I punched the holes too, to kind of give my paper piercer somewhere to go. After I punched a row of holes, then I placed my red stitch and I had it span 3 holes. It came above the cardstock in the first hole, passed over the second hole, and went back under the cardstock in the third hole. I counted really carefully and I placed all of my red stitches, which was a feat for me. And then I went back and I did all of the orange stitches. When I made my orange stitch, I began it by coming up through that second hole that I had passed over previously with the red stitch. So the first hole for the orange comes up halfway through the red stitch, and I took care to place my needle roughly evenly between the individual threads and the floss that I was using for the red. So it looks like the orange floss just appears seamlessly within the red floss. I repeated that process with each color until I had all the colors in. And again, if you're interested in a better tutorial, just let me know. I continued that border all around the exposed edges of that white based polka dot pattern paper, and then I started work on my title block. So I put Grandma in white so it would stand out very clearly from that busy pattern paper. However, the next word, I really went for broke with the theme. I knew I wanted to make a rainbow title, so I began digging through my collection of thickers and stickers to build the word Stuffies, and I used a different color for each letter. I did have to supplement a little bit with hot pink and sky blue so that each letter was a different color, but still in the rainbow order without any repeats. And between, there was a sky blue stuffy and there was hot pink polka dots. So I knew the colors were represented in the layout itself. So even if they weren't specifically like a primary color type rainbow, I still knew that it went with the theme of the layout. I figured your eye would be drawn to that title with the big bold white word, and then it would naturally complete the title, even though the second part was maybe a little more difficult to break away from that busy background. And I think it works out well. The rainbow title really gave it kind of a fun, whimsical feel, and it reinforced that visual theme for the whole layout. At this point, I moved on to the journaling. I cut a bunch of 1/4-inch strips, and I tried handwriting the journaling first. I felt like this is a layout about handmade loveys, and it only makes sense to hand make as much of everything as I could on this layout, but it was just too messy. And honestly, it was too long. I wasn't going to be able to say everything I wanted to say. So I switched to the typewriter. And I really liked that look a lot better. I felt like it's still authentic journaling. It's still written in my voice. There's little imperfections in the typing, but also it gave a cleaner overall look that worked really well with the stark high contrast of the layout itself. So now it's time to start dressing everything up. I'm so mad at myself. I really, really wanted to use these border dies that I've had forever from scrapbook.com. But guys, at some point in the unpacking process, I'm still so mad. I found the handle to my Big Shot. It was in like a big mixed gallon Ziploc of all my common tools, etc. So like I'd basically dumped out my top drawer with all the stuff that I use all the time, and I put my handle in there specifically so I wouldn't lose it because it's kind of important, and I didn't want it to get lost in the box that I put the Big Shot in. So I found that Ziploc. I saw the handle to the Big Shot, and for whatever reason, I said, "Oh, I'm going to go through this like really soon. So I'm just going to set it down." And now I can't find it. So I have found a Ziploc full of like my tools that had been, I thought, in that first drawer. I got those all settled, but there was no Big Shot handle in there. I have found every Ziploc I can find in the room, and there's no Big Shot handles in any of them. And I've gone over my whole cart multiple times, and I can't find this handle. I don't know where it went. It is an older Big Shot, so maybe this is just a good excuse to buy a new one, but oh my gosh, it's so infuriating. Okay, anyway, so since I couldn't use the dies, and I also wanted to make like a rainbow with a die set that I had, but again, I couldn't use my dies. So fortunately, I had this fun rainbow tissue paper. So I fussy cut out a rainbow, used my glue stick to back that onto white cardstock and cut it out again. Then I added a couple of punched clouds and put all that on with some foam tape for dimension. And that was kind of my star embellishment there next to my title. I also wanted to layer these border dies, and I was planning on making them white with little rainbow colors peeking out. But again, without the die cut machine, I had to settle on I just traced one of them and hand cut it out. And then I used my smallest heart punch to add a little rainbow of punched hearts to the scallops, and then cut that into two. And I kind of used it like washi just to kind of fill in some open space in a couple places. And I added some punched hearts around my rainbow because I kind of liked the look of them. And so that gave me the hearts in 3 different places on the layout for a little triangle. And the hearts looked like they needed a little company, so I scattered enamel dots and rhinestones in clusters nearby too. And then finally, I decided I wanted more of the rainbow border stitching, like a lot more. I just had some open spots where it seemed like a little border would be good. So I ended up basically defining a larger mat around the entire focal photo. It still gave me that contrast that I wanted with the texture, and I got the gradient look with the split stitch, plus using this hand stitching on a layout about handmade items, and how that can demonstrate love. I thought that was a great combination of meaning and design, so I really loved how all that turned out. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it, subscribing to my channel, clicking the little bell. I'd love to see you again. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle there is vexedangel13. Lately, I've been posting my shorts over there first, so it's kind of like a sneak peek if you're on Instagram. I'd like to break in the craft room a little more with a card and an art journal spread, so I'll see you soon, and in the meantime, I hope you have a happy, scrappy week. Bye.